and I started putting this together. I said, wait a minute, we've been dealing with challenges ever since the onset of project management. So I'm not going to go over the history, look at common challenges we'll be facing, but I'm going to look more in today's environment. So I'm going to define that environment and look at that. But before I get started, while we're still waiting for others to come in, I'd like to get you and hear from you. I'm going to open up chat here. In the chat, put down a couple of your challenges. Just I mean, so this is educational for me. We share it with the others in the meeting here. Just 2 or 3 words about your current challenges. What concerns you? Just put in chat so I get a little record going on here and validates what I'm doing from a teaching perspective. What are you concerned about? What are some of your challenges nowadays? Mandates. Well, these are going to be good. See if anything is that we don't know. Effective teams, engaging stakeholders, getting out of silos, getting some functional help. Understand the voice of client. Alvin's got it. Hey, on time, on budget. Oh, what right tools to use? All right. The others I hear is about 165 of you, so we can get good pull going on here from across the different projects. Agile practices. All right. How do you start integrating more adaptive practices? Challenges, anybody? You've got to have something if you're dealing projects, any project. Professional life, personal life, volunteer life. What? Yes, if you poor subcontractor performance, if you're, a lot of my clients are heavy on supply chain, how to get the contractors involved. Communication, right format, very good. How you can be effective at communication. How to integrate technology in your environment. I like that. Avoiding rose-colored glasses. Everything's perfect. Everything's working well. Yeah. All right. Please feel free to continue to add these. I've asked Jonathan to capture these for me at the end today, so I have some. It keeps me on the pulse of what you guys are dealing with. All right. Yeah, scope creep's big. Scope creep. All right, please feel free to add some more. I'd like to get started. The goal here is to give you my thoughts, of course, and where I see the challenges. I'm going to go about 15, 20 minutes, and then we can open it up to questions and discuss some of your concerns or how you see applying these. So, turn the chat over to you, Jonathan. All right. So I want to present an overview of what I see as challenges in today's environment, but I had to define that environment. And when going through trying to define that environment, I said, wait a minute, there's been a transformation of project management going on. And I'll document that in a slide. And I said, well, it depends on where you are in this transformation, on this maturity model, where your challenges might be. So if anything, let's start with definitions. I don't know the level of knowledge of project management. So I always like starting with definitions. This is from Project Management Institute. They put out a standard on project management. They're the so-called expert in our field here in the United States. There's others around the world, but a project, a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Okay, some of you know that. I started looking at this. I said, wait a minute, this has not changed in the 30 years I've been doing project management. So we've been going with the same thing. If I was to go now and start adding and think about today's environment, I might call a project something like a complex, non-routine endeavor. That's constraints. I have constraints all the time in projects nowadays: time, budget, resources, performance specifications. And not only does it deliver a product, service, it delivers value to the business. So we've actually expanded this definition of project as we've transformed the way we deliver projects. So then we have project management, the definition of project management. The application of knowledge, skills, tools, techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. All right, so we got some knowledge, bring in your personal skills, techniques. This hasn't changed in the 30, 35 years I've been dealing with this. However, a fundamental approach to manage projects was redefined by PMI the first time in 25 years with this new version of their standard. So they've seen something happen here. So we actually transformed it. We went from a process-based knowledge to a value delivery system. For those that been in business in the project management world, you know, the 6th edition that came out in 2017 was around process groups, knowledge areas, inputs, tools, techniques, outputs. Most of the processes were in planning. But the 7th edition of the PMBOK that came out in 2021 moved away from this process based to more delivery principles, performance domains. It now includes approaches for managing predictive, adaptive, and hybrid type projects through the life cycle of the project. It also is based on what they call exam content outline. This is how project managers should use the principles and the domains. We're talking about leadership. So we've really gotten much more enriched with this definition of project management, as we see in the new version of the PMBOK. So this got me thinking, how has project management transformed? And have the challenges changed or transformed in alignment with the changes in approach to managing projects? So I came up with this. I said, okay, well, where transformation happen? I said, well, the approach, the way we do it, the management, how we do it. And I had this other one, the context, because I thought this was important with working some of the organizations I've been with. How does the organization help deliver projects, and there are other challenges associated with that? So let's look at some of these here. We start out in PMI coming out of construction mainly in the project management world. Predictive. We knew the requirements, right? Construction projects, for example, we just call this waterfall, where we know all the requirements up front, so we can develop the plan, then we work the plan. Very little change going on. This is the earlier versions of the PMBOK. We're all about this. This approach to us worked well when we started working on projects with incomplete set of initial requirements. I got 2 personal examples I can tell you from the 1990s and 2000s. You can Google these if you want. The National Ignition Facility out of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, where I was working, they're trying to get this big thing, 192 lasers, focusing on a point to simulate nuclear explosion. Like, imagine that, the complexity, the uncertainty of the requirements. They start out this big, huge project. And it failed. It had to. We just didn't know enough to be predictive. They're trying to run it as a predictive project, and it failed. The other one I mentioned here that is the FBI's virtual case file software development effort, where they're trying to go from paper to paperless. Big initial requirements. They changed as soon as they started working on this project. It took 6 years before I said it's a failure. But the second go around on both of these, they became more adaptive. So in adaptive, I'm talking about breaking the project up into smaller pieces, delivering on those pieces, seeing if they work, and then incrementally build on top of those. What this does, it helps us identify, refine, and get agreement on the requirements. So both those examples I gave you, NIF and the virtual case file, started over smaller pieces, built onto successes. Define the requirements, refine the requirements, got agreement on the requirements. About the same time, we started going more adaptive. We saw the Agile Manifesto come out, 2001. How do we start working now in the world of software development, where change is good? We don't know the requirements. That's the part that's changing all the time. So let's build some methodology around that. You heard the terms at this time coming out like agile project management. PMI got on the board. They started introducing terms like progressive elaboration into our approach. So let's think about it. Let's go through. If we can outline our project, but we can't fully define it. Well, let's put it in stages. Progressive elaboration. Let's plan in detail for the first part of the project, then plan later as we get smarter and more information. They start throwing terms at us like planning packages in our work breakdown structure. We never had that before. So now you can set aside, well, I'm not quite sure what this work is. I know it's going to have to get done, so I'm going to call it a planning package. So we started being more adaptive, starting to think about how we can deliver projects, deliver value out to our customers and our organizations. Now we're in what I call the world of systems or systems thinking. This is now taking this, not so much focusing on specific aspects of your project, but the bigger picture. How does this look in an environmental of interconnected parts? Where changing one part could affect other parts. What do I mean by systems? The human body is a system. You start messing around with one part of it, you're going to react to some other parts, right? Just think about that. Just automobile, same way, interconnectivity. Now start looking at your project, not just as individual tasks or work packages, but interactions. What happens if I change this work over here? What does it do to this work over here? So that's what I'm calling systems or systems thinking. And systems thinking allows us, provides a framework to address complex, uncertain, or interconnected problems. But it's just not identifying those problems. Really, application of systems thinking is just not identifying a problem, but also what's it going to do, what created the problem, and how am I going to fix that problem? So more root cause analysis. All right, so my world, we've transformed these. Now you can be anywhere along this approach, continuum if you want, or it's transformation. Where are you, and how does it work? So there's nothing wrong here. It's just, I almost look at it as maturity. Now, now let's talk about challenges and success factors in this approach method. We have known since the 1990s the characteristics of successful projects. They're same that my business partner identified in assessing over 140 projects 20 years later. And current research I've looked at, they're still the same success factors. So our challenges have been how to implement or master these characteristics. I divide these among people, processes, and purpose, such as, hey, do you have clearly defined, do you have a clearly understanding what we're trying to do in the project? Do we have adequate planning, controls, and risk management? And do we have skilled managers and high-performing teams? Those are our standard success criteria that we have through any of our projects. However, I feel those are other challenges today, especially when we start thinking in terms of systems. And that's what this presentation is about when we talk about the challenges today. Briefly, let me talk about these two other transformations I have going on here. How we manage projects has also transformed. I want to mention this briefly because it takes a highly skilled individual to deal with today's challenges. In a survey conducted by PMI, I think it was 10 years ago or so, organizations found leadership to be the key factor in project management success. And we've seen more leadership in the recent versions of the PMBOK. So the progression here I have, or transformation, let's see if I can get this to come up there. Go from a manager to a leader to a servant leader. All right, briefly, managers, those individuals that do the work right. They've got the plan, right? They execute the plan. It's all about getting the tasks done. Leaders, I put it in, they do the right work. These are now the visionaries. They understand the value of doing the work. They empower team members, and they remove impediments so that the team members can perform. By the way, if you want to know, for those there's a good book out there that I use a lot in lectures. It's by Crow, Alpha Project Managers, what the top 2% know that everyone does not. If you want to see what it takes to be a leader in projects, take a look at that. Take a look at the book, give you some idea what we're talking about to be a leader. Now, the talk in leadership circles is about being servant leaders. What is a servant leader? Shares power, puts the needs of others first, and helps people develop and perform as highly as possible. They encourage diversity. They create a culture of trust. They have unselfish mindset. They foster leadership in others. Again, a maturation, if you want, or transformation. The takeaway here is individuals need to transform by developing and honing those soft skills. Those where we get rid of some challenges, we get the leaders, but not only for themselves, but for the team members. Anywhere I look, one of the top success factors or key challenges is getting that right PM, getting that skilled PM. One last thing I want to mention is the maturity and transformation of organizations and support and contributing to the success of project managers. Now, I don't know if you're in organizational roles, but this is key. I call this a context. On one end, we have the individual trying to navigate management of the projects by themselves, or at least it feels that way, without support from the organization. On the other end, we have organization that provides a means to develop their project managers by these academies. So these companies have invested heavily. Two of my clients, I saw this, very good academies were Shell Oil and NASA. Years they've had these academies to progressively challenge and train their project managers to take on those big, once-in-a-lifetime type projects. In the middle are structures the organization might put in place to support the project at various levels of involvement. PMI calls those PMOs, and they're various types, but it's a transformation or maturation of the organization in supporting projects. Now, this goes back to one of my earliest success factors I saw. It was how the organization supports a project manager. So I want you to think about challenges you face managing projects in the three scenarios. Those are based on what I call success factors, characteristic successful projects that we've known, we've seen, we all have to deal with when we talk about scope, time, cost, and delivering value. So I want to think about and talk about now is what's the next level, maybe to this maturation or transformation of challenges. And I put these in three areas. The fundamental challenge is still there. We got to deliver on time, budget, satisfy requirements. And we've known that for 30 years. So now you add another layer of challenges. That's what I see. Complexity, uncertainty, and changeability. Being able to identify these and manage these on top of the other stuff you do deals with today's environment. Let's go. I got slides on each one of these. How am I doing in time? Okay. This is the nature of today's environment. Think about it. Look at the chat. It's about interrelations, dealing with stakeholders, dealing with public, dealing with your teams. It's the interrelationships between project components. I'm just amazed at the type of projects you work on now and the number of interactions you have. It's just the number of emails you get a day, and just the speed of business, the speed of change of technology just adds complexity to what you're trying to do. Nature of complexity comes from the size of the effort. Now, this has been considered one of the primary causes of complexity in organizations. It's the size of this effort in the organizational structure and how they support it. Going back to my previous slide, how well does the organization support this? Interdependencies and interrelations, the number of goals and objectives you're trying to do all the way from the business level down to the project level, the stakeholders you're dealing with, technology, team development, now in a virtual environment, just in complexity. So how do you approach this? This is not rocket science. We have a tendency as human nature to make things more complex. So let's do the opposite. Let's keep it simple. Let's not try to model complexity. Let's try to break it down. Let's look at the problems and then break it down so that we understand and reduce that complexity. Following simple rules and intuitions should guide management decisions, what I call simple heuristics. Let's go back to the basics and keep it simple in the sense of how we apply this, how we address it. We don't have to model or put technology in to try to take care of some of these things or deal with complexity. No, let's go back to simple heuristics. And related to that, related to number one, let's break down components. That's the systems approach. Let's look at this from a systems approach. And then apply programmatics to build that project system. Right? So let's chewable piece of work or work that you can manage and try to reduce that complexity. Knowing that it has to come together, we'll talk about that at the end, how do you get this holistic approach? Let's break down components, reduce that complexity. And the best thing PMs can do is don't make decisions that add complexity. Let's look at downstream impacts or impacts across the system. When you make decisions or trying to go that way, assess your decisions in terms of impacts. Are you adding to complexity? What's the downstream? What's it mean to your system? One story my students heard about the KISS principle. In the old days, we used to have mail rooms where I used to work. You used to get actual US mail. And I had it sitting on my desk. And I was trying to sort it into different categories. And like 7 to 8 piles. And my boss walks in and says, no. Let's keep it simple. We had desks back then with 3 drawers, small, medium, and large drawers. He says to put the important stuff in the top drawer, the junk in the bottom, and that you don't know about in the middle. Out here, I was trying to make a system, a complex division of all these things. Just put them in 3 boxes. Keep it simple. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is a certainty in your projects we're dealing with. Remember, we haven't done this. Some of these projects we haven't done before. It's never been done before. So how do you go around estimating? How do you go about figuring out what you're trying to do? So the definitions from Webster's: not having certain knowledge, not clearly defined or identified, not known beyond a doubt, not certain. I'm focusing on a project here on 2 key aspects that drive uncertainty. And I'm talking about estimates and risks, right? And what we have, what contributes to uncertainty? Well, the amount of data you deal with. Think about this in way of estimates. The quality of the data. How good is the data? The sensitivity of the data. The complexity associated with that data. When you do time estimates, the whole goal of project management is this thing down here at the bottom of the graph that's called the cone of uncertainty. And on the left, it's saying, hey, at the beginning of the project, our uncertainty is so high. We just got a lot of stuff coming in. We don't know anything. And your goal as project manager is to reduce that cone as soon as you can, as far as you can, so that you're working in a more certain environment. So how can you do this? What's the approach I've seen people taking? Well, focus on your project. Focus on your system. Where is the greatest source of uncertainty? Be investigative. Is in your estimates. Did they document the basis of the estimates? Do you know what's good data in the estimates? What's not good data in the estimates? Conduct sensitivity analysis. What's driving the uncertainty? Can you focus on that? Ask the question, what's your biggest concerns today? What's keeping you up at night? That's what we got to focus in. And then continue to revisit and reassess. By asking those questions, by doing root cause analysis, hopefully you can reduce that cone of uncertainty, especially at the beginning of the project, being more thorough. The key one is looking at, hey, let's find the right way to deliver our projects. Let's be more adaptive and hybrid, maybe is an approach we need to take. Start building that in early on in the project to get a better understanding of what's going on with the project. Understand where the uncertainty is. Can't stress enough the number one, to me, my students know this, number one process is the risk management. You got to have a formal risk management process. Heck, I say even informal. Just start thinking about risk. Risk is a future uncertain event that can have an impact on what you're trying to do. So the biggest thing is organizations I've worked with, this is the key, is in helping understand uncertainty and reduce uncertainty, doing a risk management process at the even before the project starts, through the business, through your sponsor, understanding where these hiccups could be. One organization I saw was very good is they made contingencies mandatory. So let's put some contingencies in the budget to help us manage this uncertainty. If something happens, we have our contingencies, and those contingencies come out of your risk management processes. And just like on the first one, we're talking about complexity, uncertainty, reduce uncertainty with every action and decision you're taking. Don't add to it. See if you can get down to the root cause and understand. Just human nature is just make that part of your heuristic if you want. I'm going to reduce uncertainty and complexity with my decisions. The last one is changeability. Definition, the fact of being likely to change, the fact of changing out. Okay. PMI, a modification to any formally controlled deliverable, project manager plan component, or project deliverable. All right. What I know and what I've learned is change is inevitable in a project. You have to plan for this. You have to manage with change in mind. This has come about just from the sake of speed of business I mentioned before. New requirements always coming in, new pressures always coming into the environment. They have to change the project or the technology you're using in the project, something like that, they make bigger and better in a life cycle of that's getting faster and faster. Technology changes. It used to be every 7 years. It's now every 2 years. It's just how fast this technology changes. So how do you approach this? You have to get an understanding of the requirements. This is one of the key success factors we've known since I've been dealing with since the 1990s. If you don't know them, let's adopt an appropriate project delivery methodology. Right? It'll help reduce the uncertainty, should help reduce the complexity. So let's start looking now, how do you put these adaptive or incremental delivery into your project design? That's key, so that we get a better understanding. So we get to understand the requirements. And then based on what you know, based on managing the uncertainty and the estimates, put together the best plan possible. But you know that's going to continuously update. That's just part of nature. Know that that's not going to stay there. You'll continuously have to, as you get better, you want to make changes to improve performance or correct performance. The key here is knowing your baselines and constraints. Are they still the same? How they change? And that's understanding that and being able to manage that through a change control process. That is, besides risk management, to me, that's the key process is, do you have change? Now, it depends on your approach. More adaptive lifecycle project design accounts for that change. Agile, they change is their middle name in Agile, right? They're able to deal with it. But in maybe more toward the other end of the continuum that we talked about earlier, a more predictive, moving to adaptive, implement a change control process. And keep that as a key process. All right, so then I got one last slide. How am I doing on time? Oh, good. We got some time for questions and discussions. All right. If I was to summarize everything, if I could. In closing, where can project managers start to understand the challenges on their projects? Regardless of where you are on that transformational journey or that continuum I presented earlier, these are two views I feel project managers need to adopt now when managing projects. First, let's look at the big picture. Let's holistically. Let's stop focusing on individual components, individual tasks, individual work packages. No, let's back to the systems thinking again. What are the structure and interactions of the components? I tell my PMs, my organizations, this is getting your head off the desk. Everybody wants to sit down and figure out the critical path or fill out the risk register or stakeholder register. No, let's get up as a PM, look at a holistically what we're doing, and take different ways of looking at your project. Manage the whole instead of in across a linear way of critical path, for example, or top-down thinking is in a work breakdown structure. Let's get to the whole meaning of what we're trying to do. The second, adaptable. You have to be adaptable. You have to realize any project you bring in has to figure out what's the best way to deliver that. Every project's different. What process do we bring in? How do I tailor those processes? What do I do to reduce complexity, to improve my estimates? So Plan and manage success, focus, flexible, and adjustable processes. The biggest one, though, is the PM. And if leadership is so key, and I feel it is, it continuously improve processes and skills. Your processes that you use to deliver the projects, risk management, change management, for example, but also your skills. Going from that manager to that servant leader, it takes time and work, and that's something we can't teach so much in a course on the PMBOK. No, that's something you have to take on another avenue to pursue and to be successful. I hope you found this entertaining. At least some bits of new knowledge and new wisdom. Thank you for your time, and I'll open up to questions.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much for this. So if you have questions, which we already have a couple, just put them in the chat function. We'll read them out, and then Scott will answer them as well. So
if I can,
please, any questions, just put them in there. All right. So let's see here.
I've got my chat open.
So the first one here is from
John T.
Yeah, John T here. He asks,
I've got Jonathan. I got my chat open.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to read them out so that anyone viewing this recording will know what the question is. So, yes, he says, I'm from, was that Kentucky? Would you suggest somebody with project coordination experience to get their PMP certificate? And do you think that would open up the gate to more opportunity with jobs?
I do believe in PMI and the certification. I also believe in PMI for knowledge sharing. But back to specifically what the PMP can do for you, it's where you want to go for your career. It's if I look at somebody coming in and applying for a project manager job, I look, do they have the PMP? To me, they know the basics of what good project management is, and then it also tells me they're taking it seriously. So yes, but you have to qualify for it, right? You have to have so many months of experience and so many hours of education. But personally, yes, I find there's value in that, especially if you want to work in project management.
Great. Let's see, we'll move on. So Francisco here has two questions. We'll start with one of them. He says, let me start from the premise that servant leadership is an ideal that in practice is not feasible on every team. Do you agree, or do you believe that on every team there is room for a manager to build towards the servant leadership?
I don't think it's feasible on every team. It's not needed. Depends on the type of work you're doing, the complexity, the structure, the size. But to be an effective leader, I think you have to pursue to go down that road to try to build towards a servant leadership. Now, I take this as maybe an example. Not everybody can be a CEO. There's a certain skill set. Maybe that servant leadership's at top, but working toward that to where you are comfortable, it just will behoove you to start building toward that, or picking those off and being more of a servant style leader, especially in today's world.
Great. And so the follow-up question, or the second question here, are there certain industry certifications for project management that you would recommend over others, or that are more widely recognized than others? So is Six Sigma really the authoritative, universally desired PM certification?
For project management, there's two key ones I see working with my clients around the world. One's PMIs, the other's APM. They're both based on a standard that gets you down to knowing what good project management is. Now, there are others that you can get that are more industry specific, maybe. If you want to talk that, if you want to be an agile practitioner, there's great. There's several business analysts. They've got certifications. Depends what avenue. You mentioned Six Sigma. If you want to get into quality. So there's a lot of other certifications specific to aspects of managing projects, but for the umbrella ones, it's the PMP and the APM.
So I think this is a good time to mention. So we have our own educational thing here. We do certificates. So we have a certificate in project management that Scott here co-founded here. Would you like to give a little brief explanation of it and like the educational requirements for that it satisfies?
Yeah, So it's a continuing studies. So it's for professionals that have a degree already that need additional skills. Now it's not a PMI certification, knowing a standard. We offer an 80-hour certificate program that gives working individuals additional skills to go back and immediately start practicing and applying to their work. And we have, you can look it up on the website if you want. I'm trying to pull it up here. We've transformed our program to meet the needs of what we're looking at. But we have 7 courses now: predictive and agile fundamentals, strategy and project execution, leading project teams, team communications, negotiation, risk management, then in applications. 80 hours, walk out with this certificate, and you'll have skills to take back and apply. If I need more specifics, Jonathan.
No, I would just say that the only other aspect is, so from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for the PMP actual exam, you need an educational requirement. And this certificate that we offer does, in fact, satisfy the educational part of the PMP exam.
There are 35 hours you need. I do, and some of my students are here, I've seen their names. I do highly recommend that you take a PMP exam prep course. We offer one. It's not part of the certificate program, but to be successful in understanding what you need to pass that exam, it's a different way of thinking. So I encourage, don't rely on the certificate program to prepare you for the exam. That's not the design of it.
All right, well, that little segue, we'll get back to the questions here. So next one is from Yared. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Yared wants to know, are there any significant differences or changes between PMBOK 6 and PMBOK 7?
Yes. I think 7 was expanded. No, it's still based, your knowledge still needs the processes. So 7 is about processes, leadership, and business environment. Well, that processes comes from 6. In 7, they've combined 6 with an agile approach. So yes, there is a difference. Similar, but different. And there's more focus on leadership in 7, but still a guide on what they think is good project management. The structure's different, but the core base there is still what was in the PMBOK 6.
Okay, great. We have another comment, but I want to encourage anyone, if you have any questions here, get them in there, because we're coming to the close of the questions that we have. So I want to make sure if you have one, please let me know. But here we have a comment from, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pronounce this right.
Well, he's online. He can tell us how to pronounce it.
Yes. And it says there is a PMI article about the facilitative project manager, which I think syncs with a lot of what you mentioned in terms of the soft skills and project management. And he has included a link here. So if anybody wants to check it out there as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give it a few more.
Any more questions?
Oh, here we go. Wandu wants to know, is it possible to take individual courses selectively in the certificate? So
yes.
You mentioned there's seven, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I can go in a little detail. So when you actually go to it, you have to select those classes you want to complete the certificate. You take all 7, but you can absolutely do, if you just wanted to do the agile part, of course you could do that, because that's very popular right now. Let's see. Okay, we got more. Okay, Enzo wants to know, what is the title of the book you talked about?
All right, let me put that in chat. It's by Crow. And it's on what they call alpha PMs. Just like that should get you going.
Oh, Sarah added a link to it. So Alpha Project Managers.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, I just had in a class recently. So
great.
Thank you.
All right. So our next question here is from Jason. As when cultivating a high-performing team and building out adaptive systems, how can you use PM tools, approaches to support enhancing employees' coachability, accountability, and ownership around projects?
Jason, that packed a lot into that question. So adaptive to me, it takes a little different mindset and a little different way of forming your teams. I would almost go to more of a scrum master type or coach type thing to understand what it takes. Depends on the environment you're working in. It does take a little different mindset. There's some tools though that I pull from there. Have you heard of scrums? Very worthwhile type of setup where you just change from your status meetings, those 2-hour status meetings you have to sit in on every Friday, right? No, you go to a 15-minute stand up and where everybody stands up around the table in your team, 7 to 12 people, and you ask, what'd you work on yesterday? What are you working on today? And what impediments do you have? Boom. So we're to get into more adaptive, more fluid. That's one way I can see, for example. There's others I can find, but that helps. But look at some of the things they're using in agile or adaptive environments and pull from there. Kanban board, one of my favorites. Look up Kanban board. It's a way of visually seeing where tasks and who's working on what task in the flow through of your work. It really gets people to buy into that work, enhancing accountability, ownership. And there are I've used virtual Kanban boards, so you can share them for virtual teams.
Okay, so let's see. Thank you. We have a couple more here. They're coming in again. What are some of the tools? Lucille wants to know, what are some of the tools and resources you have used to develop your team?
I don't mean facetious. Donuts. It depends on the team. It's how do you inspire them? What gets them excited about coming to work? What gets them excited to working on the project? So what are their motivation factors? So it depends on that. But everywhere from team development exercise, recognition's a big one. I mean, just getting a pat on the back goes a long ways, not only for the team, but for individuals. Having ways that they can, I challenge them with some of my problems. Here, you guys figure this out. And so they come together to work and they start setting a culture, or I try setting to say how we're going to work and empowering them to make decisions. So there's some good readings out there. If I don't have one right off the top of my head, but I hope that helps. But food always works to get my teams going.
Good. I like that. So it looks like we have one last question here. So again, if you have any, get them in now. And some comments. Jason and says thank you for your answer to your question. Let's see. The last question I have here is from Marcelina. Is the certificate for advanced level PMs or beginners?
Both. I've had junior people come in with very little experience, but of course you'll get more out of it if you get more into your work environment. Now, interesting, some of the demographics we have, the average is about 10 to 15 years experience already on the job, and over 50% of them have a second degree. So it's quite an enriching experience. But yeah, anybody I think you benefit if you're early on, come in and get the certificate. It'll definitely help you, as well as if you're advanced level.
One of the other aspects of the program, just because I am a marketer, so it's right up my wheelhouse. It's not just even the instructors for industry knowledge. It's your classmates and their experience as well that enrich the classroom.
And we designed it so that's how we started way back when, was learning from each other. We think that was the best way. And we have a wide range of industries represented by our participants that come into our programs. I thought it was just to be government or IT. No, it's wide range.
Okay, so that looks good. Oh, we have one last. It's just when are we going to get this recording? So I'll upload it probably today and send out a follow-up for the present. So you'll get it in the next like 24 hours or so. All right, and a lot of thank yous coming in for all of it.
Please,
with that in mind,
Jonathan, I'd like to add, if they have any feedback, send them to you. I'm always about continuous improvement. So
yeah, absolutely.
One more question came in.
Oh, yes, it did. So Mina, so to qualify to take the certificate, I have to have previous experience in PM. How can I get experience if I do not have the knowledge or the background?
Well, that's you have to have that experience to get the certificate. You mean talking about the PMP, or is she referring to the class or the?
I think she's referring to the PMP exam.
Mina, PMP. Is that your yes? You have to show for the PMP 36 months of continuous work in projects. So you do have to gain that experience before you can take the exam. 35 hours of classroom plus 36 months of continuous work in project management. So that would answer. Does that answer your question? You have to have it.
What would you advise if somebody who's not currently working in projects but wants to transition?
Well, if you think about your work, think about it as projects. Are you doing a set task for a certain amount of time? And then maybe what you can do, I mean, is go pick up a PMBOK or read about what's the basics of project management. So you start talking about your work in terms of projects. You may not call it certain things, but PMI has certain vernacular that helps, that they want to hear the kind of work you're doing. Are you planning a task? Are you executing a task? Are you doing quality on a task? Are you doing risk? Any of those count. Are you engaging stakeholders? Any of that counts as project experience. You have to get a job. Mina asked if she has to get a job first.
Yeah, okay.
Now some have used volunteer experience. So depends on the type of projects.
Okay, well, with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. And so thank you everyone for attending here. Again, we have recorded this, we will distribute it out. So if you came in late or just want to review this information, please do so. I want to again thank you, Scott, so much for your over 30 years of experience, definitely showing within this, and your great work in the project management certificate as well. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. I love talking this stuff. I have no problem.
Okay, great. And thank you everyone again for coming to our Knowledge at Noon. And if you have any other questions about our certificates and things like that, please contact us. So bye everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan.